happy today. I am William Brown from iamwilliambrown.com. This is the spotlight conversation um, on leukemia and lymphoma society. And I will apologize right out of the gate. I was working on a number of things, and I lost track of time. It was one of those things that I felt that I had a lot of time to do a lot of different things. So I just sent the link for my guests to get on. So yeah, so I it's like the good news and bad thing about being focused, right? So sometimes when I'm too focused, what happens is I don't see anything else. It's like when I clean off my plate, right? Clean things off my plate. I clean it so well to make sure that there is nothing else there. So I can see that my guess, the spotlight is in the green room, and it's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's like I don't know about you, but I don't know if you ever have that moment where there's this gnawing thing saying you should be doing something right now, something, and it's like, no, I'm good. And it's like, yeah, I need to send her a link. So I'm just going to bring her in. And
Hello.
hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing very well. How about you?
I am doing great. It was like I said, I was just having one of those productive days, right? And
Yeah,
then, and just in the moment, I'm no longer productive because I'm.
it's still productive.
So I am so honored. I had all these plans of, kind of setting you up about, the story that you want to share, and that I am open to, whatever comes up for you. And, I've been going back and forth on, how to, I guess, to name this. I want to spotlight it. It's not a cancer story; it's a survival story. It's an encouraging story. There's so many other things about it that I want to learn, and then and basically just kind of encourage people um, to join in the awareness campaign and the financial campaign and the whole thing. So this is the moment where I invite my special guests to introduce themselves, so we can get started.
That's me. I'm Julia DeCaneva, and I describe myself as someone with an insatiable curiosity, especially for human behavior. And I spend my time as an intentional living coach, which is entirely because of my cancer journey, I would say. So it all feels very relevant. I'm really grateful for this space, and I think it's really wonderful anytime there's opportunity to just show all the different faces of cancer survivors. I think there's a lot of very quiet cancer survivors. Like, they kind of come out of the woodwork and it'll be like, you had cancer and I had no idea. It won't come
Right.
up. And so, but I think it's really important because there are so many people and so many stories and so many versions of cancer survivorship that,
Right.
to be celebrated.
So, so it's like, okay, what part of the journey? Because we've titled this "The Journey to Stillness." So it was like I was intrigued because when most of the times when you hear the word cancer, right, it just means so much. Stillness is not one of the things that comes next. I guess for me,
Totally.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like, so. Can you share, um, I guess that journey to who you are?
Mhm.
And I was thinking, and so this is the one thing that I've been going back and forth about, and so I want to ask you first, before I do it, is that when you're telling the story, would you mind that you are just the spotlight and you're the only one on the screen, or would you like me to be on the screen with you?
Oh, I have no preference. I can
Okay.
see if it's more of me telling my story, I can see just me for a while.
Okay. And then
Mhm.
I'll just come back. So this is an
Mhm.
opportunity for you to share your story.
Amazing. I'll, I'll try. I'm 31 now, and I was diagnosed when I was 29. But before I dive into that piece of it, I'd like to first start maybe 10 years back. So I was, fresh out of college, moved to LA. I lived at home for a year, and I had a full-time hours freelance graphic design job. And then on nights and weekends I worked retail. So I was working many, many, many hours, and I would take on side projects. So suddenly my work hours just crept and crept and crept. And I loved it because it was like firing on all cylinders. And I liked that I had all these plates in the air that I could just sort of, um, always have a more difficult challenge to tackle. It was very satisfying. So I would say after about 3 years of working almost nonstop, um, like genuinely nonstop, I was starting to feel really burned out, and I was kind of burned out on graphic design, and I was really looking for something different. So in 2015, I started working as a professional home organizer. So I just did freelance. I did half organizing and half design. And it was a really interesting experience because really a website is not that different from a filing cabinet. It's basically the same thing if you really think about it. So there were a lot of really beautiful parallels. But the big part of professional organizing that I really fell in love with was the intentional living aspect, and helping people declutter wasn't necessarily about just like shedding things for shedding's sake. It was so much more about what's bringing richness and what's bringing value to your life. I think a lot of people struggle with physical decluttering because they're like, does it spark joy? And you're like, my vacuum cleaner, like, okay, it's okay. But for me, it comes down to like, I really enjoy having a clean, calm space. So I'm going to hold on to my vacuum cleaner. So that whole process, the beauty of purposefully having things in your life, things or people or places or things. So I was working still many, many hours, but less, thankfully. And then in 2018, I noticed that my thyroid was swollen, and I was like, well, that's weird. And that's technically, it can be a symptom of a lot of different things. So I went to the doctor and we did some blood work. My thyroid levels were a little bit off, but everything else checked out. And then about 6 months later, I got this really weird cold, like flu sort of symptoms. And I was like massaging my neck because my glands were all swollen. So then I was like, and then and right here, there was a lump. And I definitely did not recognize that being there. And it immediately seemed suspicious because your neck is a really lumpy place. So people get really worried about, like, if you touch your own neck now, you'll know if there's a tumor hanging out that's not supposed to be there. So I set up my first endocrinology appointment, and I waltzed in October, and then uh, had a very quick succession of, she found the lump also and was like, that's problematic. So over the course of a month, I got an ultrasound, a needle biopsy, and then like the full pathology and diagnosis. So 2 years ago in October was when I was diagnosed. And gratefully for thyroid cancer, the typical treatment is surgery, and then often a radioactive iodine pill. So not chemo. Some other people have experienced beam radiation, but it's sort of more archaic. And to me, the radioactive iodine is a little bit archaic too. So now you know. I didn't even know there were such things as radioactive pills. I had to be quarantined in my home office right here for 3 days, and I just kept sending people Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, the little GIF of him when he's glowing and radioactive. So through that treatment, and like, because I found the lump first, I think that gave me a lot of runway to accept the fact that it probably was going to be cancerous. It seemed unusual enough to me that it was big enough to feel that I was like, probably not a cyst. So I think I was incredibly lucky in that sense, because it gave me a lot of headspace. And because I was hypothyroid, which was in part why the tumor grew, because it gets all stimulated and all the cells grow, I really had major brain fog and was so tired and so lethargic. And it was gratifying to understand where those symptoms were coming from, which of course we sort of knew back a few months earlier when my thyroid had been swollen, but we didn't realize that there was a tumor also just making its way. So I was working as a creative director at the time, and the company I was at was super gracious about me taking it really easy and having a month off around the surgery. And that was the first time I had just like drop everything, stopped working for my entire life. Because school was rigorous, work was rigorous, everything was rigorous before that. So while I was playing a lot of Spyro and watching various Netflix shows from the couch, I really developed this sense of very natural mindfulness. So like all of the sunshine is so beautiful, and the flowers outside are beautiful, and the birds were chirping, and just this very keen presence that I was always too busy to notice before. I just didn't even realize that was a thing and that it all existed. Of course, I knew there were birds and that the sun shines in LA, but this was a much different experience. So in January, then I had the radioactive iodine. That's when I was in quarantine. And by that point, I knew that I needed to make some really major changes. I needed to really dig deep and completely overhaul my relationship with work and productivity and success, and also with food. So for probably 15 solid years, I had really terrible digestive issues and never quite found the help that I needed before then. People would say, well, change your diet. And it's like, to what? And then I'd be like, do you have a nutritionist I can talk to? And they're like, no. I'm like, you're a gastroenterologist. Doesn't it seem like that fits together? So, but no, apparently that's not how that works. So why would it be so easy? And gratefully, through a friend of a friend who also was in her own cancer treatment, she had a naturopath, a nutritionist, both of whom she really loved. And they specialize in oncology. And so I was like, oh, this is it. This is my ticket to gut health, apparently, is getting cancer. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of sad. But for me, that worked out really well. And I completely overhauled my diet. I learned how to genuinely cook beyond just like preparing pasta and really basic things. Now I cook all the time, probably 10 hours a week because of my own dietary. Not everybody who has cancer has to cook all the time. So with all of the mindfulness, I felt so happy and so joyful. And it's not that I hadn't felt that before, but I just felt a sense of calm that I had never experienced before my diagnosis. So as I'm overhauling everything in my life and thinking ahead to what I would really like to keep, the biggest piece of that has been mindfulness and meditation. And that has moved into a formal meditation, daily meditation practice. And, my body isn't as strong as it used to be. I lost all of my muscle just like sitting on the couch for several months. And when I came back to that, everything's a little different. Even though I didn't have chemo, my strength is not what it used to be. And so I really had to redefine how I move my body and to what degree, and taking the intensity out of everything, basically. So really it's, I called this a journey to stillness because it's been so many beautiful lessons of slowing down, and like the world doesn't end when you stop overworking. And I'm still interested in working. Like, it's when you stop working, you're not going to never start again, because if you can find a space to work where you're interested and engaged and happy to be there, then, what more can you ask for? So I have my life coaching practice now because I bring the lessons from cancer of slowing down, integrating mindfulness, and what I call intentionalism, which is an internal decluttering, and basically just evaluating all of the things in your life and whether they're really serving you. And I bring that to other overworkers and overachievers and perfectionists, because it would be wonderful if all of the overachievers and overworkers and perfectionists could learn this lesson from my tumor and not have to have their own tumor experience from there. So I've just accepted into a meditation teaching program for next year. So I'm hoping to incorporate even more of that. And my deep breath poster that I designed back in 2010 in college has never been more relevant. So I just hope that everybody can see how stillness is such a beautiful thing. And I guess the final piece of this is what I call the cancer cadence now. Is I presumably have a small growth remaining in one of my lymph nodes, because I had several lymph nodes removed with my whole thyroid and my tumor. And so that potential microscopic tumor, I have to monitor forever. Hopefully it won't grow. But I get blood work every 3 months to check on it. And I get an ultrasound every year, which I just had on Monday. And I just found out this morning that it's all clear. So you guys have come with me now on my 2-year anniversary mark. And so cancer has become, thankfully and gratefully, less prominent in each day in the way that it kind of consumes everything for the first at least year. But it's still something that comes up all the time for me. And, it's a beautiful reminder to let go of the outcomes, because every 3 months you might have your tumor grow. So you just do what you can to take care of yourself and not let it scare you too much. Yeah. It's kind of like me.
Wow. Wow. No, thank you for that. I mean, there is so much about your story that, like you said, you don't want people to have this cancer journey to get to a place of stillness or being present and mindful. But what a gift. Now it's not just for you, right? It's for all of us. I mean, because I'm connected to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like every time I have the pleasure of speaking with you, there's a level of stillness that comes within our conversation. And So yeah, I'm reminded of our one word conversation of, lead. And I just see that you're leading the way. You're within your story. Um, is there anything that I guess within the awareness that within this campaign that you would like people to kind of get? I mean, for me, it was like when I was nominated, to be a part of this, I was like, wow, I'm so honored. And then I was like, oh my God, I know nothing about this. Why am I being honored? Right. So it's like, so, is there, like I said, is there anything that is like, hey, I wish people knew more of this?
Yeah, I think I wish people knew more stories of people with sort of chronic cancer.
Hmm.
So many people think of it as an immediate death sentence. And although there is an incredibly high mortality rate, um, there are so many beautiful survivor stories, and
Hmm.
that even people with who do end up passing away from cancer, their experience is so rich. There's just so many, I mean, similar to the lessons of dying and what we can learn from mortality is just it really has this effect of stripping away everything that doesn't matter.
Hmm.
And I think that lesson is just so beautiful. I think people really get worried and nervous about cancer, and like if you can find stillness and
Hmm.
quiet and learn to listen to yourself and learn to really take care of yourself in a fundamental way, like sleeping enough, drinking enough water, eating in a way that supports the health of your own body, like it's not that you won't get cancer doing those things, but
Right.
you just know that you've done as much as you can. And I think there's still so much possibility, even with a cancer diagnosis. Of course, mine was, it's technically stage one, but it's only one of two because if you're under a certain age in thyroid cancer, it's
Hmm.
different staging, which is very
Right.
confusing. Um, so, of course, my experience is different, and someone else would probably say something different. Um, all of this to say is just learn how to take care of yourself right now.
Hmm.
just just figure it out and find the support that you need and the people you need as your like care team, and don't worry about
Hmm.
getting cancer because either you're going to get it or you're not going to get it, and
Right.
it's kind of going to happen no matter what, so you may as well just like give up the reins a little.
Right. So as we close, because I don't want to take too much of your time, there's a question for the around the people your support, right? The people that love and care for you during this time, and there's many times that I felt like there's you want to say the perfect thing and you want to be the perfect support, and on some level I know that that's not possible, but you still want to do that. Is there any advice to people that are supporting someone that's going through this journey?
Yeah. Well, that's cancer is often referred to as like a casserole disease where people are just like, I don't know what to do. Here's a casserole
Right. Wow.
and kind of move on, which is really wonderful. But I think a lot of people, um, number one, like if it's your friend or your family member, like they're still the same person. Everything and their mindset might be totally different, and everything does feel different when you get cancer. But like, I still like the same music and the same TV. And so, like, ask me if I've seen a show that you've been watching, or like just maintain a normal relationship. And I
Right.
think to that point, too, like the second part is don't be afraid to ask them about their cancer, just do it in a way that allows them to not answer if they don't feel like talking about it. Because I find so many people like kind of skirt around cancer
Right.
for me. And I'm like, it's not like you're going to remind me. It's not like I forgot that I have
Right.
cancer. Like
Right.
you're not going to like rain on my parade. And as long as I feel comfortable to say, like I'm not in a great headspace for that today. And then you can be like, great, we'll check in another day or something like that. So those are two. And my third recommendation for being a support is if you're close enough, and of course with COVID, this makes things very different, but see where you can help with laundry or cooking some meals that they have asked for and like specific recipes, or getting takeout and delivery that they like just easing the burden of day-to-day domestic life is a really beautiful thing. And no one is going to ever be like, yeah, you can't fold my towels. Like, please don't come over and fold
Right.
my towels. Like, it's just
Right.
not, it won't be turned down. So I think those are the three.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. You really helped me, in an area, because this is, I have a desire to do, spotlights and shows, tributes of people who have had this journey. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's like, maybe they don't want to share this. Maybe they don't want to talk about it. Maybe, and so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
so there's some people, in my friend group that I know that have shared it once, that they have had this is a part of their journey, but I've never really talked to them about it. So it's like, hey, now it's like, hey, let's talk about this, or kind of have you share your story, online on video and all that other
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. So all what I've gotten from this conversation is that I am not going to be afraid of it, but I'll give them an opportunity to say yes or no,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it, and that's how I can love them and share them in this way. So thank you for sharing your journey to stillness, and inviting us to. Just be mindful. If we are more mindful about ourselves now, and have this support system when anything shows up, even cancer, um, we can still, have a beautiful, wonderful life. So, blessings, my friend. Um,
Thank you so
and
much.
and I'll talk to you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting me be here.
Okay. Bye bye.